Prominent Atlanta attorney Tex McIver is accused of intentionally killing his wife Diane in September of 2016 while they were riding home through Midtown Atlanta. McIver claims he fell asleep in the back seat when a loaded gun in his lap accidentally went off, striking his wife, who was sitting in the front passenger seat. Danny Jo Carter, Diane McIver's best friend of 40 years, was driving the SUV that night. She drove the couple to Emory Hospital, where Diane died the next day. In December, about 3 months after the shooting, Fulton County issues a warrant for McIver's arrest. The charges include felony involuntary manslaughter. McIver turned himself in later that night, but was free on bond just 2 days later. Things change on April 14, 2017, when police find a gun in McIver's Buckhead apartment, a violation of the terms of his bond. Later that month, McIver is indicted on new upgraded charges, including malice murder, felony murder, and witness tampering involving Danny Jo Carter, the woman who was driving the SUV. Judge Robert McBurney is presiding over the case in Fulton County Superior Court. He denied bond to McIver once the murder charge was announced, but a few months later, in October of 2017, set bond at $750,000.
There's really one thing that you need to know about Tex McIver and Diane McIver to know that he did not intentionally shoot his wife, and that is that he loved her.
On Diane's death, he went from negative $5,000 to over $1.1 million cash instantly. And he was the executor and one of the beneficiaries of Diane's $7 million estate. It was aimed right at her back.
He's fallen asleep. When I get back in my park, the gun just discharges and goes off.
And she's driving as fast as she could. And she says the defendant tells her, slow down. You can get this case dismissed. And if you do, there's a large bonus in it for you. And I won't mind if you share it with the DA.
You said she made loans to the defendant, Mr.
Yes.
McIver. And did she expect Mr. McIver to pay her on time with interest?
His loan was interest only, so he only paid interest.
Okay.
He didn't pay any principal.
Now, you said his loan. Tell the jury a little bit about his loan and what the loan was for.
The loan was for $350,000. I'm not sure what the loan was, what the money was given to him for. It started January 15th of 2012, and he made interest-only payments. It was a 3-year term originally, and the payments were $1,531 a month. And at the end of the 3 years, Diane came to me, it was January, I guess, of 15, to say, I've re-upped the loan for another 3 years, and I've reduced his payment to $1,400 and something. It wouldn't be in the checkbook registers. It was a whole, I had a file for each person that had a loan out, and each month it had the amount of the payment, and then I posted the payments as they were being made.
Okay.
So there is a spreadsheet for that someplace.
The loan was for $350K?
Yes.
And it was how many years?
The original was 3.
Okay. And that started when?
January 15th. The payment was due on the 18th of the month, and it started in January. I think it was 2012.
And it was 3 years from there?
Yeah, and it was $1,500 and some change a month. My partner is interior designer, and the condo, the second condo, when they put them together, the kitchen was torn out. It was just a big party room with a bedroom. And Tex had asked us what we thought it would cost to put that condo back as a condo, if he wanted to put them on the market.
When you say put that back, you can split them back up into 2 condos.
Right, and you'd have to put the kitchen back in, and put it back together.
And sell them separately.
Yes.
And this was less than 20.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Late Feed Law. I'm Vinny Palme. Great to have you aboard. Day 6 of the Tex McIver trial. Another amazing day inside the courtroom. The star witness, probably the most important witness, the woman who was driving the SUV when Tex McIver shot his wife, Diane. Danny Jo Carter. Today, she completed her direct Then it was time for cross-examination. An amazing day, and I've got two amazing guests with me tonight. My legal dream team, LaTonya Hines, she's a prosecutor in Cobb County here in Georgia, and Randy Kessler. He's a law professor at Emory, trial attorney, and you may recognize him from Real Housewives of Atlanta, right?
Yes.
Yes. That's all he can say about that. All right, great to have you aboard. I want to see your questions and comments about Danny Jo Carter's testimony. Did you find her credible? Did you believe what she said? Did something she say not make sense? Did something she say make a whole lot of sense? Did she help the prosecution, the defense? What did you think of Danny Jo's testimony? Put the comments up there and we will read them, and we'll figure out if you got any questions, whatever it is. Hello to Karen and Beth and Arlene and Shay and Debbie and Suzanne and Sean and Lisa and Lauren and Brooke and Lynn, all here tonight. Great to have you aboard. All right, let me start here with the darling defense. And it's the way Bruce Harvey started his cross-examination. And he really wanted this jury to understand that Tex always called Diane darling.
Yes, and I get the fact that he went over that, but I think I felt for myself that it came over a bit flat. It's like it was too much emphasis of trying to put in that darling. I think it's kind of, it always reminds me of what Daryl Cohen has been saying, likability versus, I can't remember if it's believability, but just because he said the darling part didn't make me feel like Tex
didn't soften him up for it. Because I thought that was a part of what, because Bruce Harvey did the cross-examination today, and he basically was testifying, right? There's a lot of comments about that. He was testified for 5-6 hours today. But do you think he did a good job of making Tex seem more likable?
I think he did. I think he changed the case. He did a really good job of, you know, another good day at the ranch, darling. You know, that he was asleep in the back. I mean, he set the stage for it. This was a guy, they had a great day. That whole day, there was nothing bad. You know, if you think somebody murdered their wife, usually there's a clue that, well, he said something during the day. He snapped at her. He got mad at her about this, or she said this. They had a great day. They had a great day out at the ranch. They drove around. They had some wine.
They had a lot of wine.
Yeah, but
a whole lot of
for
wine.
all intents and purposes, no offense to Randy, but I'm sure that Lacey Peterson's last day with Scott Peterson probably seemed just fine too, and they didn't have an argument or whatever. Who knows?
Maybe, but you don't know that.
Right, you don't know that. We don't know that here. But what I would say is, and I love Bruce Harvey. I think Bruce is great. I don't feel, based off of the testimony and the cross-examination today of Danny Jo, that I felt like Tex was softer.
Here's why it was a good day for the defense. The case for the prosecution is no longer premeditated. He planned this because he didn't plan to get off the road there. He didn't plan to go in a bad neighborhood or what he thought was a bad neighborhood. That's sort of, I think the prosecution's case now is he got the gun, he figured this was a good time to do it, and he just decided then to do it. But if they had a good day, there was nothing that would have made him say, today's the day I'm going to be angrier.
But here's what I'm saying to you. I'm not saying that the defense had a worse day than prosecution or prosecution had a better day. But when Vinny's asking the question about likability, I did not feel anything that came out of cross-examination made me feel that Tex was a more likable character, a more likable person.
Okay.
I didn't feel that
it didn't make it worse, right?
Right. It didn't make him soft. It didn't make it softer. But the point is, on cross.
Well, how about when he described what Tex was doing for the ladies, right? He's you know, the ladies are watching football. The ladies are watching Auburn play football, and Tex is slaving away in the kitchen, cooking them some dinner. How about that? And to me, I saw exactly what they're doing. They're trying to make this jury like him without him having to get up on the stand and testify.
Which is brilliant. And
he tells Danny that he's going to go back. Please come with me. I want to go change my will to make it in accordance with what my wife would have wanted. I mean, I think that was powerful. I know you don't think it's as powerful, Vinny, but he did say that. If he's made all these stupid mistakes after the fact, after the death, this was not a stupid mistake. He didn't orchestrate a plan to make himself look innocent. Going to cook for somebody doesn't make it softer for me, the fact that you wouldn't pay for your own wife's ashes. Like, you wouldn't pay for your own wife's ashes. That's after the fact. Look.
But what I'm saying is that those instances today that Bruce was bringing up didn't necessarily, to me, negate the character that we've already gotten out about Tex. But what he did do, like Vinny said, which is excellent, right? If Tex never testifies whatsoever, which a good defense would make sure he didn't.
Doesn't think he's going to. He's not going to.
He got things out there as if Tex would have been the one testifying himself. And that was brilliant.
And here's Debbie saying, or asking, does Danny Joe say he's guilty? Now, a witness isn't allowed to get up on the stand and say, I believe they're guilty or not guilty. That's improper. However, do we have any idea what Danny Joe might think?
Hasn't she said accident? She called it an accident. She used the word accident. The car didn't hit anybody, so the only accident was the gun going off. She's used the word accident. I would be all over that in closing argument.
The good thing about Danny Joe is the bad thing about Danny Joe for both sides. She comes off to me believable because she's not necessarily overly helpful for one side or overly helpful for the other side. That's somebody
I can't figure out other than she's telling the truth, right?
And it makes you think she's just telling the truth. She's doing it based off of what she remembers, because some of the things, the ways that she answers things for Bruce Harvey doesn't necessarily sound like she's helping the defense, but it also doesn't sound like when she's on direct examination that she's helping the prosecution.
It's a trial lawyer's best friend when there's somebody that you might have called as your direct witness, somebody you would have had to ask, questions such as, explain, tell me. Instead, he's got to cross-examine her, and he can lead her. He can say, is it true that this, and this happened? And that's why Vinny keeps saying he was testifying. I mean, the defense lawyer gets to say, isn't this what happened? Isn't this what happened? And it's somebody who is definitely, if not an enemy, may not be his best friend. This is not an adverse witness. This is not somebody who just is trying to fight the questions. She's happy to say, sure, that is what happened.
There's an interesting discussion taking place right now in the comments, and Lynn said she's believable, but didn't shed a tear. Come on. And then we have Brooks saying she doesn't have to cry. She may have been crying since 2016. So Lauren found her credible. And then, is it one more person? Okay. So the fact that she's not crying up there, and again, a lot of people are noting that. I was surprised by it. I thought she might, but I don't know her that well, so I don't know what her baseline kind of is.
She's probably rehearsed this in her head. She's probably been so worried about having to do this and get it right, and she's gone over this and talked to so many different people and friends. There's no question she's crying a lot. How do we know? But unless we're in that situation ourselves, it's hard to judge.
And I think you're right about that. But what I think you notice about her, kind of similar when we look at kind of like a Ross Harris situation, when you have somebody who has had been afforded speaking with an attorney before their testimony, I think on some levels it gets them a little bit prepared. I don't want to call it coached, but it gets them prepared in a way that maybe when they come off on the stand, they sound a little bit different. When you think about the personal assistant who testified, right? Who's
got very emotional
on the stand, he may have gone over it a little bit with a
good trial lawyer is going to take their witness ahead of time and ask them questions that are 10 times harder than they'll ever.
But let me ask you this. Do you, as you prepare for trials and you have witnesses who have to testify, do you as attorneys try to prevent them from crying? Is there anything you say to them ahead of time about that?
If I'm calling them, I want them to be authentic. I want them to be themselves. I might, to help them on the cross-examination side, say, you're going to get asked some questions like this, and I might ask them in a very difficult, offensive way, so that when they're on the witness stand, they can say, that's the best you got, Vinny?
Right.
I mean, my own lawyer asked me a tougher question.
But how about from the emotional side, where you're talking about something that could be very emotional for someone? Are they instructed by attorneys? Are they
shouldn't be
to not cry, to try to hold it in?
I would never do that with a victim, especially in the case that we're proving the case and against a defendant. With a victim, and we usually have a victim advocate there, you tell them. You just tell your truth. You tell what happened to you, and you do it in the way that you need to. And if you need a break, then you indicate it, and we'll let you have the break that you need. But the other thing I like to tell victims is that you can't do wrong or right when you testify. All you can do is just tell the truth about what happened, so that they're not feeling so emotional about everything that they're saying, and that they just say what happens.
You can't tell somebody not to cry. You can try, but in that kind of environment, when she lost her best friend, and the questions are coming at her, what's she going to say? Well, my lawyer told me not to cry. If it comes out, it comes out. It is the crucible of justice. When that's happening and you've got all this, you're under oath, you've got the witnesses, you've got the judges, you've got the lawyers, whatever happens, it's the most authentic kind of reality you can have. If you're likely to cry at a question, That's where you're going to cry.
And it also
I want to bring up another
nervousness.
issue here. This is another important issue. I just want to switch gears a little bit. Sorry,
No
I jumped on
worries.
you there. Eric is asking, was Danny drinking in the truck with them? And the answer, Eric, is no, she was not drinking in the truck. But drinking did come up during the cross-examination today, and Bruce Harvey had to bring up the fact that, and she said, we heard some of this during direct, but not as much detail, that she had a history of drinking, and they were describing the relationship between Danny Joe and Diane, that they were very close for years, but then Danny Joe had a serious drinking problem, and Diane distanced herself from her friend Danny Joe. As a matter of fact, did not invite her to the Diane Tex wedding.
Yep.
Now, I'm watching and hearing this, and I understand it. It's difficult to talk about and everything else, but I'm wondering, who does it help? Who does it hurt? What does it mean?
Here's what it means. It means they had a long friendship. You know, you think about the people you've known for a long time. You've had bad times and good times. The people that go through the bad times and are still your friends, that's authentic, right? They went through this rough patch, didn't even come to the wedding, and then she's driving them to dinner and going to the ranch. I mean, this is a true friendship.
So, but the defense was bringing it up today. So why would the defense go there, and who does it help?
The only thing I can assume, right, because for me, why is that relevant, is to show that you yourself have had a bit of a troubled life yourself and a troubled relationship with Diane. You weren't always the best of friends.
I think it helps humanize. It tells a different story. You want to talk, if you're on trial and you're the defense, you want to talk about anything other than the incident, anything other than the gunshot, anything other than
but you
the
can
death,
still keep
the
it
hospital.
something relevant, right?
But this is a story. This is a human being that's on trial for his life
So
now.
why is it relevant? Let me ask you this question, being devil's advocate. Why is it relevant for the jury to know that Danny Joe used to have a drinking problem? She's not charged with DUI or anything like that, so why is that relevant?
Because it may not be relevant, but it's in. And it was a distraction, and it was, there's Danny Joe, there's Diane, there's Tex, they had this relationship. It was brought up on offense. It was brought up when the prosecution came up.
Yeah, they put it out there. They definitely did.
You get a chance to explore it and draw the attention.
Rebecca's got a good one. Rebecca's got a good one here. Rebecca, I want to hear from the personal masseuse. And we heard some testimony. Apparently, Tex has a masseuse, and it was shortly after the shooting, and there were people at the condo, and he's in the master bedroom with the personal masseuse.
And I don't think there's a privilege.
Right.
Is there a privilege, a masseuse client privilege?
Is there any?
I don't
think so. I don't think so. So
Unless she's got a medical degree or a law degree, and they were talking law, but no.
yeah, so I think the personal masseuse may testify, but do you think that damages Tex? Does that make him look like he's getting a massage after shooting and killing his wife?
No, the only thing
Just
that matters.
relaxing, you know, he
Unless
needs
the
to
masseuse
relax.
says something like, you know what he told me? And he says something bad to her.
No, but how's the appearance, though? The appearance. Again, I've just shot and killed my wife. You know what?
Those tranquilizers.
I need a massage. Yeah. You have something like 3 o'clock? Yeah. Deep tissue. Deep tissue. Can you do 90 minutes? Excellent. We'll just do it in my bedroom. Thanks.
You know, you should do stand-up.
How does
That's funny. That is funny, Penny.
That was funny.
But the truth of the matter
Does
is,
that make him look bad?
I think the reason it makes him look bad is because the average person doesn't go out and pay $100 for a massage or
It's
whatever.
just
Especially when you won't pay.
going with the idea of not being a very likable person and very cold.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cold. Like, you know what? Dang, well, she's gone. You know?
Well, and here's the
Can't do anything
thing.
more about Diane.
And the personal masseuse isn't going to do it for free. So he'll pay for the personal masseuse, but he won't pay for his wife's ashes.
Back to the ashes.
And I know people say that that's not that big of a deal, but that is like, if you lose a loved one, to me, like, that is such an emotional thing. And the idea that you would put a value at $1,600.
Right. So what is he doing?
ashes.
Is he doing like this? He's like, ashes or 8 massages? Ashes or 8 massages?
We're not psychologists.
I
We
don't
don't know
know.
why he didn't go get the ashes. That could have brought back
I don't know.
you know.
I know why. He didn't want to spend the money.
Or you put your head in the sand and you don't want to deal with it. And you don't want to deal with anything that reminds you, and you want to get far away from it.
He wanted the estate to pay for it. He wanted her to pay for her own ashes.
So, Randy, that's what becomes part of the issue, and I think that's what the prosecution looks at.
But
If
this
you
is their
isolate,
case.
if you isolate one thing on its own, then you're right. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal, and you can explain it away. But
It
then when
means
you
this-
add all these things together, it starts making you wonder
It means
if there
the
was
state's
more
desperate.
motive.
It means the state's desperate. They don't have an eyewitness that can say he intentionally shot her. They don't have a confession. They don't have anything except circumstantial evidence after
And
the fact.
circumstantial evidence is enough.
Not
in
a lot of
of
time. Let's see,
cases.
there's Casey Anthony, there's, O.J. somebody. I mean, circumstantial evidence doesn't often win a case unless it's really strong. This isn't strong.
All right, let's talk about some of the I think there was one point today where Bruce Harvey on the cross-examination was going back and forth, and it was much more adversarial than most of what happened today. And it all involved the gun and the bag, and the testimony or the cross-examination focused on what hand was the gun in. And I thought this was really significant because apparently at one point Danny Joe had said to someone, one of the police officers, that the gun was in the left hand, but she believes it was in the right hand because the left hand was the one closest to her. At the end of the day, after hearing all the testimony, to me, I don't know exactly what hand the gun was in, but the gun was in a hand. How important is that fact, and the fact that it's kind of like up in the air at this point?
Defense points for the defense.
How big?
Big, because they're trying. The only person that saw what happened is her, and now her credibility is at issue. And she said the gun was pointed at him. Well, was it pointed at him before? I mean, she
said yesterday. She said gun, a hand in the bag,
which is
in the bag, not on the bag, but gun in the bag. And then today it was, all right, if it's in the bag, if it's on the gun, is it in the right hand or the left hand?
But see, I think that's all a distraction, because the bottom line is if he had the gun for the reasons that he wanted the gun, and he says he wanted the gun, which is for safety because he was worried about where he was going, then his hand should have been on the gun, ready to use it if something happened.
But you're missing. See, here's my point: is that if your hand is in the bag, right, and especially with this particular gun, now you could slide the hammer back. Right? If you're just handed a gun like this, there's no way you're going to accidentally slide the hammer back. You have to actually do it. Now your hand is in here.
Why does he have the gun on his left?
Well, the testimony is pretty clear that they got off of the Edgewood exit. They went underneath the overpass on Edgewood Avenue, and he wanted the gun because he said, "Girls, this is not a good neighborhood."
And so if he was taking the gun to be safe, is it safer to have a gun in a bag that you have to find how to get into the bag if you need it, or is it safer to have your hand ready to go if something bad happens? He didn't take the gun.
It's not which is safer, it's like which is more likely to be an accident.
Correct.
If the gun is here on my lap without my hand in there,
it's not likely to be an accident.
No, it's more likely to be an accident.
Yeah.
More likely to be an accident that somehow, that you just touched the gun and the trigger went off. Whereas in here, my hand is in here, now all of a sudden I have access to the hammer, I get my finger on the trigger, and I can aim it.
Assume for the moment it was an accident.
And I can aim it.
Assume for the moment that it was an accident. If his hand's on the gun, is it more likely that it's easier to pull the trigger than if your hand's outside the bag? If your hand's on the gun and it was an accident, sure, it's much easier to pull the trigger accidentally than if your hand's outside the bag. So you can argue both ways.
To me, it's all about the hammer. It's about the hammer on this particular gun, because this gun, it's like a 14-pound double action, right? If you got to squeeze that trigger with the hammer not pulled back, not cocked, it's like 14 pounds. With it cocked, they did some tests. It might have been less than 4 pounds, maybe close to 2 pounds. It was like almost like a hair trigger that you could, I think you could much easier just touch it like this, or if it's in here. So to me, if his hand is in here, then he has access to that hammer, and he's getting it ready, and he's purposely acting with the gun. So what they have to explain to me is, how long does he have this gun before he goes back asleep? And why would you sleep with your finger on the trigger? Why would you sleep with your hand on a gun?
One of the best points, and it'd be nice if somebody went over that a little bit more, actually, during the trial.
I think they will during argument.
Which is probably a good idea, so that you don't have the defense to be able to come right back at it, which is, if this is such a scary area that you're in, why on earth would you fall asleep?
Well, that's an easy answer. Because he didn't fall asleep intentionally. He'd been drinking wine, he fell asleep, he was tired. How many times do you say, you know what, right now I'm going to fall asleep?
Okay, I have a comeback for that.
Okay.
You are an experienced, trained gun handler, expert. You're all about gun safety. Why would someone who was drinking and sleepy decide to handle a gun in the first place? And why, if you felt yourself like, oh, I don't feel good, and you're out of it, why wouldn't you just get rid of the gun? Why would you keep your finger on the trigger in the bag?
Bad decision. The problem is that his explanation is as good as your explanation. Because he was drinking and he said, I'm still going to have a gun to protect myself from this bad area. That makes as much sense, if not more, than I'm going to have this gun. And
so much testimony about him being such a responsible gun owner.
And I think that's the thing that we learned during voir dire about people who are supposedly responsible gun owners, right? They take extra precautions, and that's why it was hard for them to believe that something like this would be an accident.
One shot through a seat that has metal in the back that actually killed her, and it didn't kill her right away. That does not seem preconceived. If he wanted to kill her, and he's an experienced gun owner, he knows where to shoot somebody, how to shoot somebody to cause instant death.
Right, but
this was not instant
here's
death.
the difference. But we're here debating it. Because you know what? If you want something to look like an accident, you gotta make it seem like an accident.
And so
if you're an experienced gun owner, you're not gonna go shoot like a sniper.
So it's an all plan. He's gonna get her onto 85 and tell her.
But here's the thing.
Hey,
here's the thing about premeditation. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to set this plan up, you know, months and something away.
Right.
You all of a sudden decided that, guess what? This is something I can do, and I can do it right now.
So did he plan it ahead of time, or was it a last-second plan? Because neither one of the strategies match up with what you said a minute ago.
I think the argument has to be that there was tension about the money and everything else that was going on in their lives, and then he took the opportunity. I think that's the only argument you can make.
I think that's.
But how about this? How about this from Wanda? They were in a locked vehicle with lots of traffic. Who did he think was going to shoot them?
Boy,
You've been in that neighborhood. You've been on Edgewood Avenue. Who's going to shoot you on Edgewood Avenue?
Here's the deal, though, and you got to figure out which one are you talking about. Is it the homeless person that they mentioned, or is it really Black Lives Matter? You know, like, what are they going to do? Come out at you? There was like a huge protest.
And the testimony is pretty clear that they only saw one small group of people. He immediately, as soon as they pulled off the exit, was in fear, right? So at some point, does he have an obligation to say, oh, okay, we're like at Piedmont and 10th now. I don't think there's anything around me except really expensive houses.
And what, give the gun back to her while she's driving and distract her while she's driving? No,
you don't give it to Danny Joe. You give it to the woman who gave you the gun, Diane.
Okay.
All right.
And pass the gun across the car while it's moving and maybe hits a bump.
Same way you got it.
But here's the deal. This is the reason why. This is the reason why we're able to do this type of debate. It is not a slam dunk for the prosecution, and it's also not necessarily a slam dunk for the defense, and that's the reason why they've got to go through all of this.
You call that doubt.
Yeah, but
there's reasonable doubt on both sides. But you know what? Reasonable doubt on both sides means a win for the defense.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Marlene is going to give us our last comment tonight. Ready? Marlene says, if she was his darling, then you would make sure to pick up her ashes yourself.
Thank you, Marlene.
I think those ashes are one of the biggest problems.
Because it makes him not seem very human.
Yeah.
Seems very cold, like you were done. Okay, she's out of the way. I'm done. I don't need the ashes. I'm not going to pay for it. I'm not going to sacrifice $1,600 for that. But you know what I will sacrifice? $100 and some to go get my massage because, you know, I've been going through a lot. I'm really tense.
So he is guilty of not picking up her ashes, and he is guilty of getting a massage. That's not what they have to prove. That's not their burden.
All right. Randy Kessler, awesome job. Latonia Hines, awesome job. Great job on the questions and comments. We do this every night at 7:30 during the Tex McIver trial. Then you can watch it streaming on our website, 11alive.com. You can also go to my Facebook page, which is Vinnie Politan 11alive. Vinnie Politan 11alive. I'll stream it for you as well. Read all your comments there. And don't forget, final analysis on all this. We put together the highlights from court along with the analysis every night at 11 o'clock on the late feed. The late feed, you can see it on 11alive.com. You can also watch it on 11 Alive if you're here in Metro Atlanta. So thanks again, folks. We'll see you tomorrow night here at 7:30 and tonight, 11 o'clock on the late feed.